Thank you. Please be seated. All right, good morning, everyone. We're on the record on case CR 2221-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Daybell. This is the special sentencing proceeding that has been conducted last couple of days. The jury's been deliberating. The court is advised that the jury has reached a verdict on the special sentencing proceeding and the special verdict form. I'll note the state's present with the 4 prosecutors who have tried the case, Mr. Pryor and his client, Mr. Daybell, present as well. I'll also note there's a courtroom conduct order in effect. I'd appreciate everyone complying with that, as you all have throughout this trial. I will note on the record before we get to the verdict that we did have a jury question yesterday that the court answered, and I've provided the question and copies of the answer to counsel. In addition, a second question came in today. I did go on the record with that question and answer with counsel and the defendant present, returned that response to the jurors. They've now reached a verdict in the case, so the court is going to have the jurors brought in and have the verdict delivered for reading.
All right, please. Jury's all present. Count for Your Honor.
Thank you. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court understands you've reached a verdict on the special verdict form. Is that correct? All right, Mr. Bailiff, if you would please return the special verdict form to the court, I'll review that. Ladies and gentlemen, the verdict form is somewhat long and complicated. The court is going to take a moment to review the form. All right, the court's reviewed the special verdict form. I do find it's been properly filled out by the jury foreperson as well as correctly signed and dated. At this time, I am going to request, Madam Clerk, Ms. Holstein, if you would please read the special verdict form. If you'd like to remain seated or standing, it's a long form and will take some time to read, but however is most comfortable for you, Madam Clerk, you may go ahead and read the special verdict form into the record.
In the District Court of the 7th Judicial District of the State of Idaho, in and for the County of Fremont, State of Idaho Plaintiff versus Chad Daybell Defendant, case number CR 22211623, Special Verdict. Part 1. We, the jury, render the following verdict on the alleged statutory aggravating circumstances. 1. Has the jury unanimously found that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following aggravating circumstance? The murder of Tylee Ryan was committed for remuneration, or the defendant employed another to commit the murder for remuneration or the promise of remuneration? Yes. 2. Has the jury unanimously found that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following aggravating circumstance? The murder of Joshua Jackson, hereinafter J.J. Vallow, was committed for remuneration, or the defendant employed another to commit the murder for remuneration or the promise of remuneration? Yes. 3. Has the jury unanimously found that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following aggravating circumstance? The murder of Tamra, hereinafter Tammy Daybell, was committed for remuneration, or the defendant employed another to commit the murder for remuneration or the promise of remuneration? Yes. 4. Has the jury unanimously found that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following aggravating circumstance? The murder of Tylee Ryan was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, manifesting exceptional depravity? Yes. 5. Has the jury unanimously found that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following aggravating circumstance? The murder of J.J. Vallow was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, manifesting exceptional depravity? Yes. 6. Has the jury unanimously found that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following aggravating circumstance? The murder of Tammy Daybell was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, manifesting exceptional depravity? Yes. 7. Has the jury unanimously found that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following aggravating circumstance? By the murders or circumstances surrounding their commission, the defendant exhibited utter disregard for human life? Yes. 8. Has the jury unanimously found that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following aggravating circumstance? The defendant, by his conduct, whether such conduct was before, during, or after the commission of the murders at hand, has exhibited a propensity to commit murder, which will probably constitute a continuing threat to society? Yes. If you answered no to each of the above questions, you do not need to answer any other questions. Simply have the presiding juror sign this verdict form and notify the bailiff that you are done. If you answered yes to any of the above questions, then please answer the questions in part 2. Part 2. We, the jury, render the following verdict on the weighing of all mitigating circumstances against the statutory aggravating circumstances. You are to only answer the following questions for those statutory aggravating circumstances for which you answered yes in part 1. 1. With respect to the statutory aggravating circumstance that the murder of Tylee Ryan was committed for remuneration, or the defendant employed another to commit the murder for remuneration or the promise of remuneration, we unanimously find that when weighed against this aggravating circumstance, all mitigating circumstances are not sufficiently compelling to make imposition of the death penalty unjust. 2. with respect to the statutory aggravating circumstance that the murder of Joshua Jackson, hereinafter J.J. Vallow, was committed for remuneration, or the defendant employed another to commit the murder for remuneration or the promise of remuneration, we unanimously find that when weighed against this aggravating circumstance, all mitigating circumstances are not sufficiently compelling to make imposition of the death penalty unjust. 3, with respect to the statutory aggravating circumstance that the murder of Tamara, hereinafter Tammy Daybell, was committed for remuneration, or the defendant employed another to commit the murder for remuneration or the promise of remuneration, we unanimously find that when weighed against this aggravating circumstance, all mitigating circumstances are not sufficiently compelling to make imposition of the death penalty unjust. 4, with respect to the statutory aggravating circumstance that the murder of Tylee Ryan was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, manifesting exceptional depravity, we unanimously find that when weighed against this aggravating circumstance, all mitigating circumstances are not sufficiently compelling to make imposition of the death penalty unjust. 5, with respect to
Did we lose the mic?
it's back. 5, with respect to the statutory aggravating circumstance that the murder of J.J. Vallow was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, manifesting exceptional depravity, we unanimously find that when weighed against this aggravating circumstance, all mitigating circumstances.
Do we need a new mic? Okay, we're going to get a separate mic. Thank you.
I'll read 5 over.
Yes, start with 5 again. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
5. Okay. With respect to the statutory aggravating circumstance that the murder of J.J. Vallow was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, manifesting exceptional depravity, we unanimously find that when weighed against this aggravating circumstance, all mitigating circumstances are not sufficiently compelling to make imposition of the death penalty unjust. 6, with respect to the statutory aggravating circumstance that the murder of Tammy Daybell was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, manifesting exceptional depravity, we unanimously find that when weighed against this aggravating circumstance, all mitigating circumstances are not sufficiently compelling to make imposition of the death penalty unjust. 7, with respect to the statutory aggravating circumstance that by the murders or circumstances surrounding their commission, the defendant exhibited utter disregard for human life, we unanimously find that when weighed against this aggravating circumstance, all mitigating circumstances are not sufficiently compelling to make imposition of the death penalty unjust. 8, with respect to the statutory aggravating circumstance that the defendant, by his conduct, whether such conduct was before, during, or after the commission of the murders at hand, has exhibited a propensity to commit murder, which will probably constitute a continuing threat to society. We unanimously find that when weighed against this aggravating circumstance, all mitigating circumstances are not sufficiently compelling to make imposition of the death penalty unjust. Once you have completed part 2, please have the presiding juror sign this verdict form and notify the bail if you are done. Dated this first day of June 2024 and signed by the presiding juror.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Clerk, for reading through the verdict form. Ladies and gentlemen, the court will note that given the complexity of this special verdict form, just I think in fairness to all those in attendance, including in particular victims and the parties, the layman's explanation of this verdict is that the jury has made a finding that it would be appropriate to impose the death penalty as it relates to counts 1 through 6 in the amended indictment. And so pursuant to Idaho Code 192515, the court is directed that the defendant would be sentenced to death on those counts. The court will take up a concluding sentencing proceeding. I also have additional counts of insurance fraud I've discussed with counsel. Moving forward in a consolidated hearing, the court's proposing that we do that this morning, waiving the right to a pre-sentence investigation report under Criminal Rule 32A. Before I get there, just let me ask at this time of the jurors, is this your true and correct verdict that's been rendered in this case? Very well. Does the state wish to have the jury pulled on the special verdict form?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Does the defense wish to have the jury pulled on this special verdict form?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Very well. As I mentioned, then that's the result of the verdict form. The court would then proceed with additional sentencing on those two counts, as well as the counts 1 through 6 determined now by the jury. Mr. Pryor, is the defense willing to move forward with a consolidated hearing on those counts this morning without a pre-sentence investigation report?
As previously indicated, Judge, yes, we are.
Okay, is the state going to be ready to proceed with a sentencing on those issues as well?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counsel, I do want to take a brief recess just to briefly prepare for that, given the verdict, and I will come back on the bench. It really won't take long. I would suggest that a 30-minute recess will come back on the record. The court will conclude with that sentencing hearing. So if everybody could be back here by 10 after, we'll have the jury return one last time to the jury room to wait for that final sentencing hearing. We'll conduct that in the presence of the jurors also, and then I'll have concluding instructions for the jurors. So we will be in recess for 30 minutes. We'll come back for that final stage of the proceeding. Thank you.
All right.
Let me drop my stuff out back here really quick. Phone on so I can actually read the aggravating factors really quick. That was tense. Caitlin Hart with East Idaho News. Chad Daybell has just been sentenced to the death penalty. A verdict was reached about 8 hours after deliberations. The jurors unanimously decided that Chad Daybell deserves the death penalty based on the aggravating factors of the case. I'm going to read these to you. The jury found that Tylee and JJ's murders were committed for remuneration or compensation, or that Chad convinced someone else to commit the murders for remuneration. The jury also found that Tammy Daybell's murder was committed for compensation, or that Chad got someone else to do it for compensation. The jury found that Tylee's murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. They also found that JJ's murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and that Tammy Daybell's murder was also especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. The jury found that Chad exhibited utter disregard for human life, and that Chad Daybell's conduct exhibits a propensity to commit murder, which would cause a potential for danger to society. It was an incredibly tense hearing. Chad did not display any emotion. He didn't even move. He stared at Judge Boyce and the clerk the entire time they read the verdict. We've been out here since about 7:30 this morning. They read the verdict at about 11:30. Again, Chad did not have any emotion. He sat very still. There was a lot of emotion in the gallery, especially from Kay Woodcock. She immediately broke down into tears. Larry Woodcock was hugging her. The family was very, very emotional. Again, no real response from Chad Daybell. He does still have to be sentenced on the insurance fraud charges. So after a 30-minute break the court decided to take, we will come back and Judge Boyce will hear arguments for the insurance fraud, I believe, or he could just sentence him based on what he already knows. There will be no pre-sentence investigation for these charges, but that will also happen today. An interesting point as well is that Chad has already decided he's not going to speak. So even after sentencing, he, in the death penalty case, loses his ability to make a statement, from what I've been hearing. Right now, everybody's outside, just kind of reeling from the verdict. It was a very intense situation. The vibe in the room was very heavy. Lots of people, I think, were kind of nervous and anxious for what was going to happen, but the jury did find that Chad will be facing the death penalty, and as far as when that will happen, we have no idea. There are people that have been on death row for decades and decades and decades, and recently in the last couple of months, Idaho tried to execute Thomas Creech, and the execution happened decades after he was sentenced and actually didn't go through. So we have no idea what's next. I would imagine there's probably going to be some appeals, big appeals process, but right now we are just learning that Chad Daybell will face the death penalty for the murders of Tylee Ryan, JJ Vallow, and Tammy Daybell. We're expected to be back up in court around 12:10. It's 11:45 right now. So I'm going to head back up there and make sure I get a seat. We will keep you updated on the website and on Twitter. Thank you for watching. All right, I am on speakerphone with Nate Eaton, who's at CrimeCon. Nate, what do you think about the verdict?
Wow, Caitlin, I could feel the series of tense. I can't even talk right now.
I know.
I can't imagine what it was like in the courtroom. You know, I was down here. I'm here at CrimeCon in Nashville, and so many people are following this trial. And we were actually in podcast row when I got the notice on my phone, and people started to pull up in their phones, and we ran up to our room to watch. This jury spent how many hours, Caitlin? Was it 7 or 8 hours?
It was
total?
about 8 hours.
8 hours deliberating this. I mean, you think about all it would have taken is for one of those jurors to say, no, we believe he should get life in prison, but they took this seriously, and they believed that this was the most serious crime you could commit and that it deserved the most serious penalty out of any penalty that can be rendered in the state of Idaho. And we will not hear from Chad Daybell. We never heard from him yesterday. You know, you were in the courtroom. We won't hear from him going forward unless he decides to give a speak about the insurance fraud charge in a few minutes, but I don't know if that's going to happen. It's interesting to me, too, that the judge decided to go ahead and sentence that today so that we don't have to worry about upcoming court proceedings. But now a whole new phase begins of exactly what happens from here. Will there be an execution date sentenced or scheduled? What type of appeals will now be filed? I mean, this is not going to happen within the next year or so. This is going to be a long, drawn-out process. As we know with Thomas Creech, the inmate who was scheduled to be sentenced to death back in March, it didn't happen because they couldn't get a vein, and he had sat on death row for 4 decades. So, you know, this is something that will be an interesting thing to follow. And now we'll see how the families feel about it. I do want to say, Kaylin, I don't know if you saw Raul Labrador, the Attorney General, did send out a statement, and I can read that to viewers now who haven't seen it.
Yeah, sure.
Let me pull that up. It came out moments after the verdict was handed down here. We also have a statement from Patty Later, who is Tammy Daybell's cousin. The Attorney General said, I just have to find it here in my email. Attorney General says, I'm thankful for the incredibly diligent work of the prosecutors and investigators in this complex case, and I am grateful for the partnerships we have in place to support the pursuit of justice. I hope the conviction of Chad Daybell and the jury's sentence provides a measure of peace to the families of the victims, Tylee Ryan, J.J. Fallow, and Tammy Daybell. That's from Idaho Attorney General Raul Labrador. I'm also hearing that the prosecutors may be holding a press conference after the sentencing this afternoon for the insurance fraud, Caitlin, so we will carry that live here. This is the first time the prosecutors will speak since they announced the indictment about Chad and Lori since 2021. It's the first time they've spoken publicly about this.
Right.
And so we have that statement, or that press conference. Unclear if John Pryor will say much today. I don't know if he'll be down there addressing the microphones, but it's possible he could. We also have the statement from Patty Later. She testified in this trial. She's Tammy Daybell's cousin. She said, "We want to thank everyone who put in countless hours of work to get where we are today. Law enforcement, the prosecution, the media, and all of you who watched and listened to the trial and prayed for us. We are grateful for the relationships we have created through this horrible time and the support and love we were able to give each other. I also want to thank my Aunt Vicki, who was sitting in the courtroom almost every day of this trial. For those of us who weren't able to do so, that took great strength. We can all start to heal from the terrible losses we have suffered. We will miss Tammy every single day of our lives, but we have some comfort knowing we will see her again. If you've been touched by Tammy and would like to support her foundation, the Tammy Douglas Daybell Foundation, to put books into the hands of children and increase literacy, please consider donating to the Tammy Douglas Daybell Foundation."
Wow.
So Caitlin, what's the atmosphere like there outside the courtroom? Are there people on the sidewalk? I mean, I don't want to say this verdict kind of came from out of nowhere, but it's a Saturday morning and a lot of people are busy, and we didn't know when it was coming down.
Yeah, right now there's no one on the sidewalk. I think because the hearing starts here in about 18-ish minutes, I think people are kind of still sitting inside waiting to see what happens with the second hearing, because there's a feeling among the people in the gallery that they want to finish this out. They want to be here for the whole thing. I was talking to people earlier who moved their flights from yesterday to today to be able to be here for this sentencing verdict. So there's a feeling of kind of wanting to complete it, get like a sense of closure for a lot of people. And right now, I'm just standing out here with some media, and I do want to mention that, you know, I think it's interesting because the jury isn't allowed to take into account that Lori Vallow got life in prison. I'm not even sure they know that. And so this is solely on Chad's charges and his conduct, and a jury came together completely unanimously to decide that, which I think is you know, a big decision that they had to make today.
Right, and it makes you wonder if death penalty had not been taken off the table for Lori Vallow, if she would have received the same sentence.
Right, yeah.
I mean, We don't know. Caitlin, I know you have to run up into the courtroom, and I'd hate for you to miss your seat. So I'm going to hang up now.
Okay.
Everybody watching, stay with us. Stay on this feed, because we're going to cut right back over to the court proceedings. And then after Caitlin, Caitlin will hang out there with Jordan and get the press conferences from the prosecutors. I imagine Larry and Kay may come down and say a few things. So you can stick with us for coverage through the remainder of today. And then hopefully tonight, Erica and I here at CrimeCon, we can do a brief wrap-up of what's happened. Good job, Caitlin.
Thank you, Nate. I'll keep you updated. Bye-bye. Like Nate said, we're going to keep you updated. I'm going to run back upstairs and make sure I get a seat in the courtroom for the next part of the sentencing phase. And I will keep you updated on Twitter at News with Kate, Kait, and on EastIdahoNews.com. Thanks.
All right, we're back on the record on CR 22-21-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Daybell, concluding the special sentencing hearing that's being conducted where the court intends to sentence the defendant on the counts in the amended indictment, including the insurance fraud counts. Is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Very well, Mr. Bailiff, if you'd please have the jurors brought in.
Yes, Your Honor. All right, please. Jury's all present and accounted for, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, we are back on the record on CR 22-21-1623, continuing the special sentencing proceeding. The jury has returned its special verdict. The court would note that pursuant to Idaho Code 18-4004, which is the punishment for murder statute in Idaho, that crime in murder of the first degree can be punished by death. And under Idaho Code 19-2515 subsection 7A, that states that if the jury finds that a statutory aggravating circumstance exists and no mitigating circumstances exist, which would make the imposition of the death penalty unjust, the defendant will be sentenced to death by the court. The court's reviewed the findings of the jurors in the special verdict form. They've taken their time through these deliberations to return that verdict. And so the court will proceed with sentencing first on counts 1 through 6. And again, this is an unusual hearing because the sentencing hearing's already been taking place. We've heard from the victims through impact statements and arguments from counsel. That's already taken place. In addition, a pre-sentence investigation report is not to be ordered in these hearings, so the court does not reference that. The court then orders as follows, and this will be contained in the court's judgment at the conclusion of the case. As to count 1, the conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception for the murder of Tylee Ryan, upon the jury's finding of guilty and return of the special verdict form, the jury finding beyond a reasonable doubt and having returned the special verdict that the aggravating circumstances when weighed against the mitigating circumstances do not make the imposition of the death penalty unjust. The court therefore, on count 1, the defendant is sentenced to death. On count 2, the first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan, the jury finding beyond a reasonable doubt and having returned the special verdict that the aggravating circumstances when weighed against the mitigating circumstances do not make the imposition of the death penalty unjust. The court therefore, on count 2, sentences the defendant to death. On count 3, the conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception for the murder of J.J. Vallow, the jury finding beyond a reasonable doubt and having returned the special verdict that the aggravating circumstances, when weighed against the mitigating circumstances, do not make the imposition of the death penalty unjust. The court therefore, on count 3, sentences the defendant to death. On count 4, first-degree murder of J.J. Vallow, the jury finding beyond a reasonable doubt and having returned the special verdict that the aggravating circumstances, when weighed against the mitigating circumstances, do not make the imposition of the death penalty unjust. The court therefore, on count 4, sentences the defendant to death. On count 5, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tammy Daybell, the jury, having found beyond a reasonable doubt and having returned the special verdict that the aggravating circumstances, when weighed against the mitigating circumstances, do not make the imposition of the death penalty unjust. The court therefore, on count 5, sentences the defendant to death. On count 6, the first-degree murder charge, the murder of Tammy Daybell, the jury, having found beyond a reasonable doubt and returned the special verdict that the aggravating circumstances, when weighed against the mitigating circumstances, do not make the imposition of the death penalty unjust. The court therefore, on count 6, sentences the defendant to death. The court's next going to take up counts 7 and 9 on the insurance fraud counts. Before I do that, from the state, are there any questions regarding the court's judgment as it relates to counts 1 through 6?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Questions from the defense?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, moving on to insurance fraud, then the court will note that I am required to go through a sentencing proceeding on this. These are separate counts that have not been determined in the special verdict form by the jurors. Some brief procedural history. Mr. Daybell was charged by amended indictment with counts 7 and 9 insurance fraud under Idaho Code 41293, which is a felony. Mr. Daybell pled not guilty to those counts on June 9th, 2021. Thereafter, this trial was held, and as part of the findings of the jury in their verdict, they did find the defendant guilty of both of those counts. The court has considered, in lieu of a pre-sentence investigation report, the information that I've heard throughout this trial. I also heard information regarding these charges in the previous trial held last year against co-defendant Lori Vallow. I've also heard information received during the special sentencing proceeding relating to those counts as well, and have considered that information in lieu of a pre-sentence investigation report. And I'll also note the defendant waived the pre-sentence investigation report and is permitted to do that, and the court can allow that under Criminal Rule 32A. At this time then, before I move forward with the sentencing on counts 7 and 9, I will inquire of the state, is the state wishing to make any sentencing recommendation as it relates to count 7 or 9?
And Your Honor, just for clarification, were the insurance frauds count 8 and 9?
As listed in the amended indictment, they are listed as count 7 and count 9.
Okay. Thank you. Co-counsel just clarified for me on that. Your Honor, the state is prepared to make a statement. First, I would indicate for the record that in relation to the sentencing hearing, the sentencing portion handled yesterday, the state did make our best attempts to reach out to all statutory victims to allow them the opportunity to be heard by the court. And those that the court heard from yesterday were the ones that had wished to make impact statements. While not directly related to the insurance fraud, I did just want to make a clear record of that. In relation to the insurance fraud charges, in light of the sentence that has been imposed by this court and by the recommendation of the jury in relation to the other charges, the state would indicate we think that the victim statements covered everything the state could say. While the insurance charges again are attenuated to it, we've lost 3 individuals that the state can do nothing to bring them back. And so the best we can do is move forward in seeking justice on their behalves. In relation to the insurance counts themselves, given the sentences, we would recommend this court impose jail time and have that, or prison time, excuse me, impose a sentence and run it concurrent with the imposition of the other sentence by this court. I believe they carry up to 15 years in prison. We'd recommend they run concurrent with each other and with the imposition of death in this case. We would also recommend restitution in the amount of $130,000 to Life Map and $300,000 to Primerica. As part of that, we would also recommend a waiver of any fines or court costs in this matter in order to allow restitution to be paid if any money is available to go towards that.
All right, thank you for the state's sentencing recommendations. Mr. Pryor, does the defense wish to make sentencing recommendations as to, I'll do them collectively, counts 7 and 9, the insurance fraud counts?
No, Judge, there's nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, is there any objection to the requested restitution amounts of 130,000 and 300,000?
Judge, we may need to set that out at this point, but I'll let the court know if that changes.
All right, I'll permit 30 days for the scheduling of a contested hearing on restitution. If that becomes an issue, we could conduct that hearing most likely remotely on a Zoom hearing if it becomes an issue. At this time, I will ask, because I need to on these counts, before I impose any sentence, Mr. Daybell, you do have the right of allocution, which permits you to make a statement on your own behalf in any mitigation of these offenses. Is there any statement you would like to make before I proceed with sentencing on those counts?
No.
Very well. The court then, having considered the information previously referenced, finds that pursuant to Idaho Code 41293, which under subsection 4 indicates a penalty of up to 15 years of prison. On each of those 2 counts, the court is going to impose a prison sentence of 15 years. So a 15-year sentence will be imposed on count 7. The court will take under advisement the issue of restitution requested by the state. The court will not impose any fines. The court also will impose a 15-year prison sentence on count 9. Also pursuant to the same statute, take under advisement the issue of restitution. The court will note in imposing these prison sentences that I have reviewed Idaho Code 192521, which requires me to go through certain criteria about the imposition of a prison sentence versus a possibility of parole or a lesser sentence. And I would note that the rationale for the prison sentences is that these are intertwined with the murder charges for which the death penalty has been imposed on those counts. And when the court looks at the sentencing factors under 1925-21, I would note in mitigation that Mr. Daybell has been incarcerated an extensively long time in local jail and has a previous law-abiding history, and I have considered that. I've also considered that he's always conducted himself respectfully, from what I've heard from all of the jailers that have ever interacted with him over the years that he's been incarcerated for these charges. However, the court finds under Idaho Code 2521 also that any lesser sentence would depreciate the seriousness of these offenses, because this life insurance was obtained based on the murders of individuals and procuring life insurance payouts unlawfully. And because of that, it's the most serious offense, that circumstance that could lead to that. In addition, imprisonment will provide an appropriate punishment and deterrent for the defendant and others, and will also be a deterrent for the community as well. So the court, having then concluded with the sentencing on that, I will not order any fines, because the defendant's previously been deemed indigent and has received the death penalty on these murder counts, and find it would be futile to have an order of fines in the case. So with those remarks, then the court typically would address the defendant further, but in the special sentencing proceeding, the victim impact statements and the evidence has already demonstrated on the record, I think, the seriousness of what's occurred. And I don't find any reason to further delve into the court's rationale other than what was listed in the statute. So unless there's anything further, that will conclude the sentencing, but I will address the post-conviction issues that need to be addressed at this time. Does the state have anything further then on the sentence and count 7 and count 9?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Anything further from the defense?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Daybell, in this case, given the sentence that was imposed in counts 1 through 6, there's a special appellate and post-conviction procedure for capital cases, and an automatic stay may be in effect. There's a statute that's Idaho Code 192719 that sets out certain deadlines. I am providing you and counsel with a courtesy copy of that statute, but I will note a few of the deadlines that are listed in there. Under subsection 1, when the punishment of death is imposed, the time for filing an appeal shall begin to run when the death warrant is filed. Number 2, the death warrant shall not be filed until 42 days after the judgment imposing the death sentence has been filed. Number 3, within 42 days of the filing of the judgment imposing the punishment of death, the defendant must file any legal or factual challenges to the sentence of conviction. There's other important and critical deadlines that are contained within that statute, and I am going to provide a copy of that to Mr. Pryor to ensure that the defense is well advised of those post-conviction rights that would apply in this special proceeding. I'll also note that there's an additional rule, Idaho criminal rule. If you'll give me a moment, I think it's 44.2. Criminal Rule 44.2, and that's the mandatory appointment of counsel for post-conviction review after imposition of the death penalty. That rule is also applicable in your case, and a copy of the rule itself is going to be provided to you and counsel to ensure that you're well aware of any post-conviction rights you may have. With that, then, the court is going to conclude the special sentencing proceeding. Is there anything further I need to take up from the state?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Anything further from the defense?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for your abiding by the court's courtroom conduct order. We'll be in recess.
All right, please. Folks, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Let me know when you're ready. Caitlin Hart with East Idaho News. We just came down from the last hearing of the sentencing phase. Judge Boyce did officially sentence Chad Daybell to death for counts 1 through 6 on the indictment. For the last 2 counts of insurance fraud, Chad was sentenced to 15 years in prison for each of them, plus over $300,000 for the life insurance money that was taken when Tammy and the children, when Tammy was killed during her life insurance policy situation. I'm here with Sarah. Sarah has been here for so much of the trial, right? Tell me how long that you were here watching this trial.
I came to 2 days during jury selection that week, and then since then, I think I've missed out of the full, like, when the jury was, like, impaneled, I think I missed maybe 7 or 8 days total of all the weeks.
Out of 9 weeks. That's a lot. So what made you so interested that you had to be here for it?
Well, I just find it compelling to listen to these, like, real-life stories and see them play out online, and I think that just any average, like, human with, like, an average amount of empathy probably feels, like, compelled by just what is happening. And just if you're here and you're able to go, I was lucky enough to be able to go. I just felt like it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Right, and Sarah was up there with me waiting for the whole verdict. I think there was probably like 20-something people up there just waiting, including media and the public, and we waited around 5 hours for this second sentencing verdict. Are you surprised by the verdict that he got the death penalty and not life in prison?
If you asked me that before the witness impact statements, I think I would have said yes, especially having heard what the people that got impaneled said in their voir dires. But after listening to the witness impact statements and just how I felt, and then watching the jury and getting kind of a feel for sort of the vibe they put off the whole trial, their vibe to me felt very disgusted. There was a lot of disgust and just sort of like fed up, and you could tell they felt for the witnesses that were giving their victims that were giving their statements. And so after that, I was leaning towards thinking they were going to vote for death.
Right. I think a lot of us were kind of on the fence about what was going to happen, and a lot of us thought that the sentencing verdict was going to be quicker than the guilty verdict, and it ended up being about 1 or 2 hours longer, I think. And so it was an interesting time, and I guess we'll see what happens from here. Right now, we're waiting for the prosecutors. We heard they're going to come out and try to do a press conference, and we will carry that live. And stay watching. Thank you.
Almost 5 years ago, the communities of Fremont and Madison County lost 3 wonderful human beings, Tylee Ryan, JJ Vallow, and Tammy Daybell. As a Fremont prosecutor on this case, this has been a hard-fought battle for both the prosecution team and for the law enforcement agencies that worked tirelessly on this case and never gave up hope. This has been a tough case because of its complexity, both in telling the story of an investigation that spanned years and trying to figure out the best way to present it in a way that would make sense to others. As a prosecutor, I try a lot of criminal cases, but for me, as a new mom, the details of this one just hit differently, and I can't imagine the family's pain. I cannot express enough both my and Fremont County's deep appreciation, gratitude, and admiration for all those who have played a role in seeking and ultimately obtaining justice for the victims in this case. This case has been about speaking for and seeking justice for the lives of 3 wonderful humans whose lives were cut way too short by the selfish desires of the defendant and his co-defendant, Lori Vallow. We are pleased with the outcome and that justice has been served for the victims in this case. This has been a collective effort between multiple agencies working in collaboration to see this case through for the victims and their families. There are so many people who have been involved and helped behind the scenes, and every last one of them has been instrumental in obtaining justice. When I came into office in 2021, after discussing the case with others in Fremont County and collaborating with the Fremont County Sheriff's Office, a decision was made to bring the case back to Fremont County because we felt strongly the case of JJ Vallow, Tylee Ryan, and Tammy Daybell should be combined and tried together. You heard from some of the victims' families how these 3 have been intertwined forever. The Fremont County Sheriff's Office was instrumental in the decision and support of the prosecutor's office in making that difficult decision. I cannot express enough Fremont County's gratitude to Rob Wood and the Madison County Prosecutor's Office. They started this case looking into the whereabouts of JJ and Tylee. Then when the children's remains were discovered, Rob Wood stepped in without hesitation when my predecessor requested he take the case as a special prosecutor, and then ultimately agreed to combine resources to pursue justice for the victims in this case. A special thanks to Fremont County Deputy Prosecutors Rocky Wixom and Tanya Rawlings for their dedication and efforts in both this case and the case against Lori Vallow. The Attorney General's office, in first taking on the prosecution of the murder of Tammy, and then by their agreement to allow us to have Deputy Attorney General Ingrid Beatty join the prosecution team. The FBI for stepping in without hesitation when the children were missing, with their extensive experience and their resources, and continuing to see this case through to the end. The Rexburg Police Department for starting the investigation into the whereabouts of JJ and Tylee, and then never giving up the search. The Fremont County Sheriff's Office for their tenaciousness in pursuing the investigation into the death of Tammy Daybell. Arizona law enforcement for sharing everything they had uncovered and their willingness to come to testify in the cases here in Idaho. This became a joint investigation, a joint effort to find the children, and then ultimately to seek justice on their behalf. I've been absolutely amazed and astounded at the level of investigation, professionalism of the officers involved, and the camaraderie that has been formed. I tell them all the time, they make my job a lot easier. We extend our support to Arizona in their continued pursuit of justice for the additional victims, Charles Vallow and Brandon Boudreau. We also extend our immense gratitude to the jurors in this case who didn't sign up for this difficult process but agreed to perform their civic duty. And in rendering this verdict, we hope the victims and survivors of Chad Daybell know that the community as a whole does not tolerate the loss of 3 precious and irreplaceable human beings. We are hopeful that those who have been involved and affected by this case and the actions of the defendant and his co-conspirators can now begin to heal.
Four and a half years ago, Detective Ray Hermosillo walked into our office needing a warrant for what started as a simple search for a Jeep to help an investigation in Chandler, Arizona. This soon turned into a search for 2 young children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. That investigation merged with the death of Tammy Daybell. Very quickly, multiple law enforcement agencies and prosecutors' offices began working together diligently to find those missing children and determine what happened. Realizing the children's last residence was in Madison County, we began a child protection action to bring the children to safety. When it was clear that Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell had no interest in helping us locate Tylee and JJ, we took further action in filing charges against Lori and extradited her from Hawaii. The search for Tylee and JJ was nonstop. Every stone was unturned through the diligent team efforts of the Rexburg Police Department, Fremont County Sheriff's Office, the Idaho Attorney General investigators, the FBI, Chandler and Gilbert Police Departments. The willingness of so many different law enforcement agencies to work together and pool resources to obtain justice for these victims is unprecedented. All of these agencies work together with the single goal of justice in mind, and we cannot thank them enough. From the Madison County Prosecutor's Office, we are so grateful for the working relationship and partnership we've had with Lindsay Blake and everyone at the Fremont County Prosecutor's Office in obtaining justice, both in this trial and the trial against Lori Vallow. That includes not only Lindsay, her deputies Tanya Rawling, Rocky Wixom, and all their help staff. I'd also like to thank Ingrid Beatty for being here with us and the Attorney General for allowing her to work with us. And I want to say that Lindsay Blake's dedication to each of the victims in this case has been unwavering. Her willingness to take on this case when she took office, when she didn't have to, was absolutely courageous. It has been an honor to work with her. And I'd also like to thank members of the Madison County Prosecutor's Office who've helped on this case, prosecutors Spencer Rammel, Mackenzie Cole, and Rachel Smith, who've helped on this case. Today, justice was served for Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. 3 innocent victims whose lives were tragically cut short by the selfish and cruel actions of Chad and Lori Daybell, who embarked on a path of destruction that irrevocably altered the lives of countless families and countless individuals. While nothing can undo the immense harm caused, we have worked tirelessly to secure a measure of justice for Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. This week, a diligent and attentive Ada County jury carefully considered the evidence and presented and returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. Last year, an Ada County jury did that for Lori Vallow Daybell as well. Pursuing justice in this case required the unwavering dedication of a large team of public servants who have devoted the last 4.5 years to ensuring we had the evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, we extend our deepest gratitude to all the committed law enforcement professionals from these agencies who have made tremendous personal sacrifices in the face of an emotionally and physically challenging case. We are indebted to them for their service. We also want to applaud the incredible strength and resilience of the victims and family members who, despite unimaginable grief, have stood with us these past 4.5 years in our pursuit of the truth. Their support has been invaluable. To all those who held Tylee, JJ, and Tammy in their hearts, we hope these verdicts bring a measure of healing and closure, and may the memory of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy continue to be a blessing to all who knew and loved them. Thank you.
Take a few questions. If anybody has some questions, you can ask some questions if you want.
Do you want me to take it or you want to? You want me to?
Go ahead.
I think every attorney handles it a little bit different, and probably every investigator. I think a lot of times there's things that go on behind the scenes that nobody ever gets to see. Everyone compartmentalizes it different or comes up with some form of therapy or stress relief to deal with it. But I think I can speak for everyone that obviously there is an impact. You get to know the victims. You learn so much about their history and their lives that it's like you knew them in life sometimes. And when you hear their families and friends talk about them and they really bring them to life for you, absolutely there's an impact, but I also think that impact then just spurs you on to fight even harder to make sure that we secure justice.
Another question? Yes.
I believe the fact that those jurors unanimously found every aggravating factor speaks for itself in terms of its appropriateness, and I'll leave that at that. I don't think we're going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. What has it been like working with the victims' families and knowing that that's what's included in today, and that I noticed a lot of them working members, of this entire meeting?
Both say something. Yeah, you say something else.
So I think Rob and I will both answer this one. Working with the victims' families, it can always be a bit of a challenge because you want to ensure that you're getting them information that they're entitled to and that you're taking into account their concerns, what they want to see happen with the case, and that their rights as victims are being upheld. In this particular case, I think the victims' families have been fantastic to work with. We've tried to make ourselves available, meet with them whenever they have questions, and keep them as informed as possible. I think you heard at times, sometimes unfortunately, they learned of things before we were able to reach out to them, and that can always be a challenge as well. But working with them, getting to know them, hearing the stories about their loved ones, hearing the good memories, hearing them bring the victim to life has been an incredible experience. I think we've enjoyed a good working relationship with all the victims in this case.
I second everything Lindsay just said, and I would also just say that these cases are hard. They're really hard to do, and the victims are just such a motivating factor, I think, for everybody involved, for law enforcement, for the prosecution office. Their dedication to their loved ones is so important, and we just really appreciate their patience with us, their willingness to work with us. They have been truly, to me, I think to Lindsay, to everybody, very inspirational. Ask that in a couple of years and we'll see.
I mean, it feels great. We worked as a team tirelessly for 4 years. Not just myself, it was a collaborative effort. I have a great team. We worked with several different agencies. So it's a team effort, but I think we're all feeling the exact same thing, which is just relief. We're glad it's done. We got justice for JJ, Tammy, and Tylee, so that's what counts. I would say hundreds. Yeah, hundreds of people, hundreds of hours. So it's a relief. Thank you.
We technically had 7 law enforcement agencies, not including the prosecutors, over 3 different states and maybe even more, but 7 law enforcement agencies. All right, anybody else? All right, thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you all for everything.
It's a weird feeling. You never wish harm on anybody, regardless of what they've done to you. But at the end of the day, it's good that he can't hurt anybody else, and that's what matters. So that's really my feelings on that. I can't say I was surprised. It felt like something that made sense, but I can't say that I feel good about it. But it does feel good to know that it feels like things are concluded, if that makes sense. It was hard. I didn't expect to have the reaction I did. I tried to just read through it, but when you're there and you're sitting there and he's right there, it just brought everything out that I've been feeling. It was really hard to say what I needed to, but a part of me feels a lot more healed, and spending time with everybody here, it feels like a healing I couldn't have imagined, if that makes any sense, but yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I think the number one thing is focus on healing. I think this concludes this chapter of this part. We have to live with the fact that we're not going to have the people we love in our lives anymore. But I want to honor them by how I live, and at some point I want to tell their stories and tell you guys who my family was, and honor them the best that I possibly can. I feel like through this whole process, it's hard because you're so up and down emotionally. I feel like I wanted to make them proud, and I feel like that I made them smile a couple of times, I would hope. So, thank you. It is good news. This is the best justice we can possibly get. And again, it doesn't change the outcome, but it is good news, and it brings closure for everybody that's been hurt. So that's the good news. Yeah, thank you guys.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, it's me, Aunt Vicki. Thank you so much for all of your wonderful coverage. My fear in all of this, to begin with, was that Tammy would be a little bit forgotten because, as we all know, finding 2 children brutally murdered in somebody's yard that you know and love is devastating, but finding out that Tammy was a victim as well. And I just, with all due respect to the kids, I couldn't imagine her being a little bit lost in the mix. So it was important for me as her aunt to be here. Her mom passed last year, and those were the last years of her life, knowing that her daughter had been murdered. So today is a sweet justice for us, for myself and my immediate family. There's just, it's hard to express. I was just talking to Larry, and we were talking about there's a little bit of sadness in us now because we've built a family together here, supporting our families. We love each other like family. Our relationship will never end. But we got justice for our loved ones, and that was always what this was about, getting justice for them. This wasn't about us. It wasn't about anything other than getting justice for those that we love. And the prosecution, the detectives, I can't say enough about them. I feel like they got a gift from those detectives. They worked so hard. They didn't count their hours. They were incredibly important to the effort that went on here. And I think that they gave it up to capable hands who were able at the end to present it to the people of the jury and have it all make sense, because it was a crazy, convoluted case, and with a lot of just crazy religious creations and different things. But we're going to be forever grateful to these people. They're amazing. Even the people that came out to court every day and would stand at 6 o'clock in the morning to try and get in and support our families and just be here. We're thankful to them. We felt their prayers. All of you who have been here from the beginning and just praying for our families, we feel that. So thank you to everybody. Thank you for Judge Boyce. That guy is amazing. We need people like him on the Supreme Court. He is the most fair, judicious person I've ever seen in my life. And I actually like to watch court on TV, so there you go. Yeah, we just send our love. We're appreciative as a family. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jason Gwilliam. I am Tammy Daybell's brother-in-law. Samantha is my wife. Samantha is Tammy's sister. And we just wanted to thank everybody that was involved in this. We want to thank the law enforcement that did an absolute phenomenal job with what they did. Want to thank the special prosecution teams, the people that we have met. The hardest part I think about all of this is our family has lost a brother. But in the process of it, we've almost gained an entire family, and that can't be replaced. We've gained Tylee and JJ's family. We've just met a lot of wonderful people through this entire process. It's been a difficult one, but we appreciate your respect. We appreciate your help in getting this covered and getting this out there to the world. It's been a challenging trial, and there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into this, and we really appreciate everybody's help. We do have a prepared statement that I want to go ahead and read at this time. This comes from the family. Go ahead and get to this. It just says that we want to thank everyone who put in the countless hours of work to get where we are today, the law enforcement, prosecution, the media, and all of you who watched, listened to the trial, and prayed for us. We are grateful for the relationships we have created through this horrible time, the support and love that we're able to give each other. And we also want to thank Aunt Vicki, who was here sitting in court almost every day when those of us weren't able to get here. That took a lot of strength from her to do that. We can all start to heal from this terrible loss we've suffered. We'll miss Tammy every single day of our lives, though we do have some comfort knowing that we will see her again someday. If you've been touched at all by Tammy and would like to support the foundation, we do have a foundation for her. It's the Tammy Douglas Daybell Foundation. It's been designed to put books in the hands of children and to increase literacy, so please consider donating to the Tammy Douglas Daybell Foundation. And we thank you guys for everything that you have done and all the support that you have given us as we try to pick up the pieces and move forward, so thank you very much.
I did want to personally just take a moment and thank everybody that was involved. First off, the prosecution team, who from the very beginning has just been incredible to work with in supporting our family. I also wanted to take time to say thank you to Judge Boyce for not just this trial, but for both trials, for everything that he did in his service. As a victim, we were given a chance to write our statements, and as we did so, we were limited by specific statutes, understandably so. But it makes it very difficult as a victim sometimes then for us to actually say the things that we wanted to say. I wanted to take a moment. There was some things that, as I was going back and forth with a part of our team, our wonderful victim impact coordinator, Paula, she helped me refine the statement, but ultimately I had to take this out because of, obviously, like I was saying, the statutes, but I wanted to take a moment and read this. It was a statement that was directed directly to the jury itself. To you, the jury, I wish I could easily say that everything I think or desire to say about Chad, or specifically the impact of his actions and to us impacted in the aftermath, was easy and clean. It's not. I'm not here to pontificate on who he was or may not be. I certainly have those opinions, and I'm entitled to them, but they have no bearing here in this setting with a decision that lays here before you. If I was still the man of God that I was even a few years ago, I'd easily know the words to offer you all in making what you feel is the appropriate decision. Instead, standing here, I'd say to all of you, may you find it in the universe, the earth, or whichever gods or goddesses you may offer prayers, meditations, or if you're agnostic or atheist, you find it in yourselves. To be true to yourselves and do what is right or just. I offer my sincere gratitude to you as a family member of a victim. Thank you for your time and your selfless sacrifice. I hope you all know how much it means to someone in our position. I always thought I understood and appreciated our legal system and the specific role the jury of our peers played until being put into this unique position. Truly, thank you. I hope that you all are able to get the necessary support and therapy that you may need to process what you've seen or heard. Living it for myself and for all of us who are victims. It has been burden enough. Please do not carry that burden for us on your heart. Thank you.
Okay, can everybody hear me? We got terrible noise behind us. I wish they'd have turned the fountain off. Everybody has spoken so eloquently.
Can y'all hear him?
As we were leaving the courthouse, the courtroom, Kay asked me, she said, "It's over." And I got sad. Justice has been carried out for everybody involved in this. What made me sad are all of y'all. You're our family. We have gone through a tragedy, from the judge who's had to endure this every day, to our friends in law enforcement. We're now brothers. I have so much respect for y'all. For this courthouse, we saw justice, equal, honest, and righteous. I look at the faces, and I'm going to tell y'all, I'm going to miss you. Not because I want to be in front of this camera. I did not choose this. It chose us. I'm going to miss y'all. There's a few people. Lauren, Dr. John, how would we have made it without you? Janine, Clint, how they have carried us through this. They have been our eyes, our ears, and our hearts here. Rexburg is a beautiful town. Boise is a beautiful town. Idaho is a magnificent state. They don't deserve this blemish. Kay and I have often spoke. How would it have been different if we were in New York, if we were in California? How would it have been different? Every day, I want to get up. I want to be here for justice, but for y'all. Y'all have all given a lot. The media has been amazing, and I want to personally thank you. My wife, my beautiful wife, my rock. We thank you. I hate to say goodbye. I truly mean that. It's not goodbye. It's until we meet again. So, as I said a long time ago, turn out the lights. The party's over. They say that all good things must end. Let's just call it a night. Thank y'all.
I'm going to say a few things.
Go ahead. Now y'all will get a real speech. I just
No, just this will be short and sweet, I promise. I want to thank everyone here, everybody that's watching, all the support, the emails, the texts, the messages, all these things we get, social media. Everybody's support is how we have gotten through this. And, you know, we're not through yet. So we're very grateful for all of you. And we really wouldn't have made it through this without y'all. And I want to thank y'all. And there was one, I know what? I'll see y'all in Arizona. That's where we'll be next. Y'all have a good day.